Hello there, it's your friend Jian, and I'm happy to take you on another journey of an unpopular Bible story. I hope that you're doing very well. Now, if you had a choice, would you choose beauty or brains? Today, we will look at a lady who didn't have to make a choice because she had both. Our story is Beauty and Brains, and it's found in the book of 1 Samuel chapter 25. There was this man called Nabal who was very rich. He lived in Maon, but also had another house in Carmel. Nabal was described as a man who was churlish or rude and was evil in his doings. He was related to Caleb. You know, Caleb who helped Joshua to spy out the land of Canaan. Anyways, evil as he was, Nabal was married to Abigail. Abigail was a woman of good understanding and of a beautiful countenance, and is the type of woman that King Solomon later described as a virtuous woman in Proverbs 31. At his place in Carmel, Nabal kept a lot of his possessions, which included thousands of sheep and goats. Now, this story happened when it was time for Nabal to shear his sheep. Shearing is when they cut the wool off the sheep. At the same time, David was in the wilderness of Paran. How and why he was there is another story, but he was there with 600 of his soldiers, and they were in need of food and water. He heard that Nabal was shearing his sheep, and he had an idea. David called 10 of his soldiers and said to them, "Go to Carmel and ask Nabal how he is doing, and then say this to him: Peace be to you, your house, and all that you have. When your shepherds were with us in Carmel, we didn't hurt them, and none of your sheep went missing. Ask your young men, and they will tell you. Therefore, let us find favor in your eyes, because we come on a good day when you're shearing sheep, and please give us whatever you can find."
They went and stood and looked at the house and were very impressed. They thought Nabal must be able to help them because they were really hungry at this time. One of them said, "Okay, let's go knock and tell him what David said." He knocked on the door. The young soldier said, "Good morning, Mr. Nabal," and then told him all that David had said. The young men were very shocked when Nabal basically unleashed on them. He said, "Who is David? And who is the son of Jesse?" Apparently, Nabal also wanted the young men to feel bad because he said, "There are many servants nowadays that break away from their master, and you might be one of them. So should I take my bread and water and my meat that I have prepared for my sharers and give it unto men whom I know not from where they come?" One of Nabal's servants overheard the conversation with the young men. When Mrs. Nabal or Abigail came by and greeted him in her usual friendly manner, he had to tell her what he overheard. He said, "My master was very abusive to the young men, and they were telling the truth. They were very good to us. We were not hurt, neither did anything go missing when we were with them in the fields. They were a wall unto us night and day. If he had asked us, we could have confirmed what they said. Please, Mrs. Nabal, think about what you will do, because evil is going to come upon this house because of Mr. Nabal. He is your husband, but he is such a worthless man and cannot be reasoned with." Abigail was so shocked. By this time, the young men had returned to David and told him all that Nabal had said. David was very angry, not because Nabal didn't send any provisions, but his abusive manner. He took 400 of the men and left the next 200 to guard their things. As David and his men were on the way to Nabal's house, they met two of his servants. One of the servants said, "David, my lord, my mistress Abigail is on her way to see you." What Abigail had done was to send the young men ahead to stop David while she prepared 200 loaves, 2 bottles of wine, 5 sheep ready dressed, 5 measures of parched corn, 100 clusters of raisins, and 200 fig cakes. Sounds yummy, and enough to feed all of David's men. She loaded up the provisions on 2 donkeys and left without telling her husband where she was going.
When Abigail got to David, he was still upset. He said to her, Apparently, it was in vain that we kept all that your husband had in the wilderness, so that nothing went missing, and he has repaid me evil for good. God do so and more to my enemies, if I leave all that pertains to him and any males. Abigail fell before David and bowed herself to the ground. She said, Upon me, my lord, upon me let this evil be, and please listen to me. Do not turn your heart to this man Nabal, for as his name is, so is he. His name means foolish and wicked, and so is folly with him. I didn't see the young men that you sent, as the Lord liveth, and seeing that he had stopped you from coming to shed blood, and from avenging yourself, let your enemies, and those that seek to do you evil, be as Nabal. Please forgive my trespass, and take this present that I have brought for you, and give it to your young men. The Lord will certainly make you to endure, because you fight his battles, and evil has not been found in you. When you have done all the good that you should do, and be appointed ruler over Israel, then this shall be no grief to you or offense of the heart, that you have killed without cause, and avenge yourself. And when the Lord hath dealt with you, remember thine handmaid. David said to her, Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, which sent you to meet me today. Blessed is your advice, and blessed are you which has kept me from coming to shed blood. Because I mean it, that if you hadn't stopped me, by morning light, no male would be left of Nabal's house. So David took the things she offered, and said to her, Go home in peace. I have heard what you have said, and respect you for what you did.
When Abigail returned home, she decided not to tell Nabal anything because he was having a party and was very, very drunk. In the morning, when he sobered up a little, Abigail told Nabal all that had happened. He was so shocked he had a heart attack. 10 days later, Nabal died. When David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, Blessed be the Lord who hath pleaded the cause of my reproach by the hand of Nabal, and has returned the wickedness of Nabal unto his own head.
In that moment, David must have remembered Abigail's beauty and her wisdom. So he sent his soldiers to ask her to marry him, and being humbled by the request, she said yes.
Very interesting story. What life lessons can we take from this story today? Firstly, do good as long as it is in your capacity to do so. David watched over Nabal's flock, not because he wanted something in the first place, but because he could. Nabal, on the other hand, even though he had enough to help the young men, chose not to do so to his demise. Secondly, do not cover up the faults of your loved ones, but do not use their faults as a reason to treat them badly. Abigail's statement to David showed that she knew her husband's character. From the story, there is no indication that it stopped her being a good wife. She could have allowed David to kill him and release her from his evil ways, but instead she begged David to spare his life. Thirdly, using our brains helps us to recognize when there is a problem and to work to resolve it. Immediately, when Abigail got the report from her servant, she sprang into action. She was dealing with the now, but also the future, because she sent servants ahead to meet David even before she was finished preparing the food. She didn't argue with her husband, as she knew that would have been pointless, but quietly went about the resolution. Fourthly, Abigail avoided conflict. Paul said in Romans 12 verse 18, If it be possible, as much that lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. There are so many other ways it could have gone, but Abigail approached David humbly. She accepted the blame that was rightly her husband's and sought his forgiveness. On her return home from meeting with David, her character was further tested as her husband, who did not know the harm that he almost endured, was having a party and drunk. Again, using her brains, Abigail avoided any conflict and waited to talk over the matter with her husband. Another lesson is to know who you are dealing with and act wisely. Nabal's question, who is David, was one of more rhetoric than ignorance, because he added what the young men never said by asking, and who is the son of Jesse? That clearly showed that he knew who was asking. Furthermore, He must have heard his servants talking of what David and his men did for them in the past, or he could have stopped for just 1 minute and verified the young men's story. I am sure if Nabal knew how his story would have ended, he would have done otherwise. Since we have his experience, let us act wisely in whatever we do.
A very important lesson is that God will always give us a warning to turn our hearts from doing what is wrong. The prophet Amos said, "Surely the Lord God will do nothing, but he revealeth his secrets unto his servants the prophets." Sometimes he will tell us directly, other times he may use someone else, but we will always have his words in the Bible as our guide. No matter how justified David felt, there was nothing right about his intentions to bring harm to Nabal. God used Abigail to show David that he was about to do something wrong, and thankfully he chose to accept the wise counsel.
Finally, we will reap the rewards of our work. Job said, "Even as I have seen, they that plow iniquity and sow wickedness reap the same." Job 4 verse 8. Whatsoever a man soweth, that he shall also reap. David helped when he didn't have to, and he got help and a good counsel when he needed it. By helping David, Abigail spared her household and eventually married a king. Nabal refused to do good when he could, suffered a heart attack, and died. It's great to be beautiful on the outside, but it is even better when we are beautiful on the inside. As Solomon says in Proverbs 31 verse 30, "Favor is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised." Did you pick up anything else from this story? Comment below. See you next time when we unearth another unpopular Bible story.